What's up, Rodney Webb University? In this lesson, we get to work on one of the most powerful slides in our presentation, the Better Business Bureau slide. What makes this slide so powerful is a few things. First of all, it works for just about anybody in our industry, so long as you have a good reputation and you do what you say you're going to do. It works for absolutely any product, and it doesn't matter if you do insurance work or retail work. This is a slide that can make a huge impact when you're in the house selling the job. So let's talk about how to work the Better Business Bureau slide, because what really makes this one of the most important slides in our presentation is how it can absolutely crush multiple objections. So let's take a look at how you should present this part of the presentation. First of all, key points on the Better Business Bureau slide. First of all, tell a story. And this is true for our presentation in general. We want it to be a narrative. We want to engage the limbic part of their brain by telling a really great story. But this slide in particular lends itself to a particular narrative. And what it is the story of our industry and how your company in particular fits into that picture, told through the lens of the watchdog of all industries, the Better Business Bureau. And we get to work in this really interesting study that they conducted a few years back to tell that story. So make it fun, make it a narrative, make it engaging. There are certain slides where you'll be moving through them relatively quickly. This is one where you really want to spend your time and address those objections that you learned about in step one. And the best way to do that is by telling a really great story. Also, we're going to own the fact that our industry has not done very well over the years. We're going to own it first. When you do that, when you take ownership of the fact that your industry has been treating customers badly for a very long time, it positions you to be able to show how your company is entirely different. And people appreciate and they respect when you take ownership of something that isn't favorable. When I was an attorney, we used to call this fronting a bad fact. If there was a bad fact in a case, we wanted to put it out there on the table before the other side could make it even worse. So in this instance, we want to take ownership of the fact that home improvement has been a really bad industry, and then we're going to change that narrative by talking about our company and how we fit onto this scene. Next up, one of the most powerful points in the entire presentation that we teach is the 80% bullet point on the Better Business Bureau slide. Why? Because it's the reason for why the industry has been so bad. When you can point to the fact that people who take the lowest bid have huge problems, and we can tell some nightmare horror stories and really put the fear of what happens when you don't pay enough for a job into these customers, man, it's just one of the best points that we have in the whole presentation. And it allows you to powerfully price condition them for what they ought to pay for a good job. And we flat out tell them straight up, we're not going to be cheap. We're going to charge enough to make sure that it's done correctly. And that means that we won't be the lowest bid. So we've already taken ownership of the fact that the industry has done poorly over the years, and now we're telling them how we're going to be different. And we're also taking ownership of the fact that we're not going to be a cheap company. We're not going to try to win the job on price. Lastly, one of the best things about this Better Business Bureau slide is at the end, when we go through the Small Business Administration study, we get to absolutely murder the competition. We talk about killing the competition throughout our presentation. I like to think of this as murdering the competition because killing can happen accidentally. But when you murder somebody, it's purposeful. And that last bullet point, about 96% of companies fail within their first 2 years in business. Well, now we can absolutely destroy everybody else, because if a company's not even going to be around for more than 24 months to take care of a homeowner, why in the world would you want to do business with them? So we can just completely destroy most of our competition right there. So let's get into this thing. I'm going to be pitching the slide, and I'll come out of it and do some coaching as we go through it to show you some different ways that you can pitch the slide to really alter these various objections. So you always want to lead into a slide with a good introduction, and this should happen before the slide pops up. So I'll intro this by saying the watchdog of all industries is the Better Business Bureau. And a few years back, they did a study that's absolutely ridiculous in some of the things that they found out. First of all, when they looked back through 50 years of complaint history, no matter who you thought was the worst industry in America, the Better Business Bureau discovered that home improvement contractors are #1 on the hit list for complaints. And I threw that question mark in up at the top because maybe you will have learned that this isn't such a startling fact for these homeowners. Through the course of your warm-up, you may find out that they've experienced their own nightmare contractor stories, and we can relate this back to them. And personalize this slide. If you know that this isn't a surprise to them, then we should treat it that way. But here we want to let them know that home improvement contractors are #1 on the hit list. We get more complaints than anyone, and we take ownership of it. And here's where I like for us to be able to show some emotion too, because frankly, this should aggravate you. This should make you mad. And it's okay for your homeowner to see you get emotional, for them to see that this angers you, that other contractors have done people so wrong for so long that now it's our responsibility to clean up their messes and elevate this industry, raise the bar again by doing things the right way, and also charging enough to make sure that we can. So now we've taken ownership. Now they can see that we recognize our industry stinks. And to the numbers absolutely staggering. 10.7 million complaints. And here I like to have a little bit of fun because when you break down the numbers, 10.7 million complaints over the span of 50 years comes out to a complaint about every 2.5 minutes. So imagine that you've been sitting in your presentation for 15 minutes and you can tell somebody that, look how many complaints we've had even since I've been here. Pretty powerful statistic. Lastly, now we're going to kind of shift gears and get away from how bad the industry's been and get into why is that? So what's the problem here? Why do so many people have so many complaints about home improvement contractors? Well, when you dig a little bit deeper into the numbers, here's what we learn. The bottom line is you get what you pay for. 80% of homeowners who take the lowest bid on a project have major problems even getting the job complete. And we're not talking about having it done with excellence or having it done to their satisfaction where they love it and they can be proud of it and they can brag about it to their friends. No, no, no. We're talking about just getting the job done at all. And here's where you hear those nightmare stories of contractors who took a down payment and never showed back up, or got halfway done with the job and then told the homeowner that the price was going to change. These are the ridiculous things that have happened over the years, and so many people have lived through these scenarios that now our whole industry has a black eye. So guess what, Mr. and Mrs. Jones? It's my responsibility to make sure that we do things differently. And the way that we're going to do it is very simple. We're not going to be the cheapest contractor. We're not going to try to win your job by being the cheapest one. Frankly, we may be the most expensive contractor that you talk to. But here's my promise. We're going to charge enough to make sure that the job is done with excellence and that it's done right and that you only do this one time. Because there is nothing more costly to someone's budget than having to do a project over again after somebody messed it up the first go-round. And now we're going to tell them about our philosophy as a company. So the way that we answer the call, the way that we make sure we do things the right way is by charging enough to do the job correctly. And that philosophy has allowed us to maintain an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. So now we've positioned ourselves higher than the rest of the industry. We've told them that we're going to be the most expensive contractor potentially and that we're certainly not going to be cheap, but we've also explained why. We want to charge enough to do the job right. We want to charge enough to be around. And that gets us to our last bullet point. So here comes one more study from the Small Business Administration. And they tell us that 96% of contractors are out of business within the first 2 years. 96%, that's almost all of them. And 2 years isn't a long time. In 24 months, they could be poof, gone. And what concerns me for homeowners is this. If they're going to potentially be out of business, likely be out of business within 2 years, who's going to be there for you when you have a problem? This comes down to customer service and warranties, because we know contractors will promise the world. They'll tell you 10-year warranty, 20-year warranty. How about this one? How about a lifetime warranty? Well, whose lifetime are we talking about? because we know that they have a death rate of 96%. And now we absolutely murder them. And so now you can see how we can elevate ourselves above the competition in a really, really serious way. 96%, that's just about everybody. And when you talk about warranties, you can tell them there's a bunch of different ways to do this, of course, but one of my favorite lines is, we like to call it a taillight warranty. The warranty's good till those taillights crest the hill. And again, there's so many different ways you can pitch this slide. One of my favorite things I hear people talk about on the 80% bullet point, just kind of a way to make it conversational and make it real, is something like, you know, my grandfather used to tell me that good ain't cheap and cheap ain't good. And you know what? Being cheap gives you no shot to be great. And we want to give you a really great job on your home because frankly, you deserve it. All these different ways to pitch it. I wanted you to hear some various ways that you can switch up the language. And don't forget, this is one of the areas of the presentation that you should absolutely personalize. You got to take that intelligence, all that information you've gathered throughout your appointment so far, and particularly in your warm-up, particularly at your transition questions when you learn those objections. Now you can alter around those objections. And this information that we've gone over so far in this lesson just teaches you the basic information of the slide. Now you got to figure out in step 3, when you take time to strategize, how am I going to use that information on my BBB slide? How am I going to alter that objection specifically? And the way I teach it is, after you pitch the slide, then you come in and UAC around the bullet point. Pitch the points, then understand, alter, and convert. So on this slide, for example, you might say 96% of contractors fail in the first 2 years. And Mr. Jones, I know that you told me that you guys are talking about getting at least 3 estimates on this job. Well, to find 3 contractors that are going to be around for more than 24 months, you'd have to talk to almost 100. And when people know that, and they see somebody like me in front of them that they know is going to do the job correctly and know is going to be there to take care of them, well, a lot of times it's no longer about getting estimates. Because when people tell me they want to get estimates, what I really find is that they're telling me they want to be comfortable with the person they select. That's why they feel like they have to look at multiple contractors. But once they find us, as long as I can fit it in their budget, it's usually good to go. Now you see how we can understand their objection, alter around it based on one of our really great facts in our presentation, and then convert that thing into a potential sale by making it about price. That's what we want to do. So now you can see how the Better Business Bureau can utterly decimate your competition, can really price condition your customers well, and to set their expectations for what they should expect from a professional contractor. That's how you use the Better Business Bureau slide to alter objections and sell more work.